I made it back at the park. Now, we just had a Hurricane Francine. I see some of the beautiful old ladies out here. There's trees. They did pretty well, but some of them didn't make it, and that makes me a little sad. These trees are older than myself, my grandparents. So to see one of them go, it's really sad. Anyway, I did all right. Like I told you on the previous video, I rather enjoyed the storm. I sat outside and enjoyed the breeze, the lightning in the distance, the thunder. Now some people got heat because the next day their power was out. I did pretty good in that way. And I appreciate anyone and everyone who sent prayers and loving wishes and all those things. Y'all loved and appreciated. It's nice to feel like somebody care about you, even if you ain't worried, you know? Anyway, I think I think part of talking about changing the dynamics of mental health care and how we see and view the prism of morality and how we move forward with that is understanding when things don't make no damn sense. What don't make sense is you see hand in hand, and I'm going to say it like I mean it with my chest, so just understand this is for the grown and understanding. Possibly. But I hope even if you're not understanding immediately that you let it sink a little bit in, give it a chance to marinate before making judgments on what I'm saying. Because I'm not trying to be adversarial, honestly. That's not my intention. When my intention is to be adversarial, it is very overt. There is no covertness about it. I do not throw shade, I throw sun immediately when I am in disapproval of something, or I feel like I need to be adversarial towards something or someone. So what I'm saying is not about picking sides or attacking anyone in particular, but I'm going to attack the issue, the problems, and not the people. I think we can all benefit from a little bit of that. It's one of those things that I tell my folks all the time when it comes to me. Have you considered attacking the problem and not the person? Because the person sometimes is innocent in how they operate because they didn't know any different. They've been taught no different. They've not experienced any difference. However, they keep running into the same type of problems over and over again. So it's probably behoove you or anybody else to attack the problems and not the people behind the problems. Because attacking the people is only going to make them attack you back. And you know what? Everybody can be kung fu fighting, which, a lot of people have in the last, I don't know how many years. But I know that there is a lot of things that do not result from fighting. I mean, you can get some results from fighting, I suppose, but if we actually want violence to cease in some way, and we're not going to ever get it completely cease, human beings be human. You know what I'm saying? The level of abject terror that most of us are experiencing through our eyes on a regular basis with violence via weapons and vitriol. We want to tamp that down a bit and bring it to a place of more balance, because right now it's completely imbalanced. Can't nobody tell me that it is balanced in our current dimension, in our current reality, that it is balanced to every day. No, not even guess that if you decide that you want to go and skip over to somebody's news channel or news page, that you're going to see more violence, pain, and suffering than anything else. I'm not saying we should sweep under the rug real talk and real stories. We should all be well informed, but the thing is, even side street, even our news channels and places online are beholden to advertisers in some kind of way. It wasn't always just that, I know I'm talking back in the day, but still, it's not that far back in the day. Right now, What's popular is what decides what our news cycle. What someone else wants decides our news cycle. And I mean, it's not lost on anybody, I would think, that at a certain point it was brought to light that our news stations were just mimicking each other. They were given a script and they just follow it. It doesn't change the fact that real world things are happening that they do report on, like mass shootings. And when they report on these things, not a single person anymore is really surprised, that I am aware of. They're not surprised that this is what it's going to be. At least one of these are going to be in the news today or tomorrow or next week. And we should be shocked and terrified and horror. Not in a sense of we need to live in fear, because I don't live in fear. I don't. And I don't recommend it. When I say those things, I mean that we shouldn't be jaded and so cut off from our emotions that we stop caring. Like we've become so cynical that you're like, oh, yep. The only thing that anyone really has to say about those things nowadays is, what did he look like? It's usually a he. What did they look like? Where did they come from? What's their background? Everybody want to know everything about the person who committed these acts. And a lot of the victims get lost in the sauce, and the news stories are about making this person famous. Maybe if we spent less time, I'm just saying, we spent less time as a society making these people famous and spent more time on glorifying some aspects of the victims so that their life lives on in a way that mattered more than just being somebody's victim. Maybe that changed a little bit of dynamic, because some of these people are doing it for that. Because they know everybody's gonna know now. Everybody's gonna know who I am. That I meant business. You didn't mean no business. Only a coward would do something like that. Or someone severely mentally ill, or both. And sometimes, I know people like to say, oh, mental illness. Well, sometimes this person is perfectly sane and is making a terrible choice based on selfishness. Like, can we just say that some people are not necessarily evil, but are making terrible choices based on selfishness and ignorance? It is selfishness and ignorance that can cause somebody who's perfectly mentally sane to do something like that. We can't chalk it all up to mental illness. It doesn't mean that someone who is not mentally ill wouldn't benefit from therapy and helping them regulate their emotions. Because a lack of emotional regulation, my hair is just doing whatever. Sorry. A lack of emotional regulation has you behaving that way, coupled with the ignorance and the socialized constructs from parental figures and caregivers. It's usually the case, ain't it? So how do we combat that? First and foremost, mental health care across the board needs to be an open process. And when I say open process, it shouldn't be barred. Like we've talked about before, we shouldn't be having to worry about whether or not insurance companies are going to approve, or whether we have a copay and things like this. Even for those who have the least monetary assets among us, we will want them to all be mentally well. Why? You think that's the only thing people do? You ever seen that movie, Waiting? I've not gotten through that movie ever, because I have a very weak constitution as it pertains to gross stuff. But people who are not mentally okay, are not well taken care of in society, do the weirdest stuff sometimes. There's things below and above what's been going on as it pertains to people who have poor life satisfaction. Now, when I was talking about fiduciary loss and gain, we lose. As a society, we lose. We don't make sure that even those who have the least among us financially are in some way privy to and have access to competent mental health care. And I mean that with the highest form. Because mental health care, even if you don't want to do physical health care, even though that's something that needs to be on the list, like we need to not that's going to be communistic. Listen, I'm trying really hard to not be conflictual, but I really need y'all to shut up. Because even your retail workers and the people who are working in labor intense jobs and things like this, Don't we want them healthy, physically and emotionally? That's like some basic stuff. Life satisfaction overall would increase tremendously. And when people are satisfied, they tend to do things that bring them most joy. And sometimes that costs money, which brings money to our economy. It don't even make sense. And then when you really think about it, overall, long term, the people who are our laborers are the people who keep us afloat. They're the most important people to the society, not the wealthy. I know that that's an easy opinion to have, but when you really think about the nuts and bolts of things, why are they wealthy? Because of the people. Not just the people that spend money, it's the people who work. This is therefore they should earn a living. That means that the cost of living is the same across the board. That is equivalent to the amount they make. Until they are able to make more and increase their standard. I mean, not the cost of living, the standard of living. I'm sorry. They're able to increase their standard of living through their own grit and hard work. But we talked about the American dream some time ago. There's no such thing anymore. What makes America special? Anything other than gun violence? What makes women are freer to do this, and this? Are we? Are we? Women make ridiculous moral arguments about our reproductive system. I mean, here's the thing. If some of you men out there and women believe that based on what a woman does with her body, she gonna go to HE double the hockey sticks, then who the hell are you to stop them from going with gasoline draws? Maybe they want to go. Maybe it's a good time for them. But I do know that suffering is not required. We are constructing as a society, constructing suffering through various means, and that's one of many. Like, you mean to tell me you need to have insurance for your mental health separately from your teeth and eyes, separately from your physical self? And it's like, okay, act like you care. We can start by putting all those things in one and saying, okay, the whole body matters, not just the pieces. What are we doing? Are we doing a chop stop? Like, what is that? What is that? Why does that make sense? And why would anybody want to prevent that? It doesn't matter if we have the largest military in the world, if eventually our military personnel even are going to be physically, mentally, and spiritually unwell. See, I touched on the part where the leaders are going to be mentally, spiritually, and physically unwell in about 40 years. What about that military? Because we can have all the intellect we want, emotional intelligence we want in office. Gen Z. I don't know if you've ever dealt with a bully on a playground. Any of you ever dealt with a bully on a playground? But sometimes they don't listen to reason. And our military is only as powerful as our strongest assets. How are our assets gonna be strong when they mentally ill and can't tell nobody, can't do nothing about it? They're physically ill. The military have excellent health care. They have decent compared to everybody else. I would say pretty good. But before they get there, though, these are children that have to grow up in this society. Eventually, those who sign up for the military, they got to be well when they get there, don't they? What happens to them before they sign up for the military? I think the psychological warfare that is enacted upon them during military training is going to clean all the mental illness out of them. Some of it, I suppose. Will train it out of them, I suppose. But how many of them going to crash out, wash out, because they're not mentally well? The number will increase over time. Every single aspect of our society, especially in this country, is going to be negatively impacted by the lack of mental health care across the board, the lack of financial resource across the board that is fair. I said fair. Wait, well, what if we pay them more, then we have to pay them more, then we have to pay them more? Listen, maybe you do, but we can afford it, can't we? We all sit here and watch Ukraine get billions and billions and billions of dollars for war, and most of the society in this country don't even understand why that war is going down and what's really going on with it. I have some insights, but I don't feel like sharing them. I don't think it's very important at this moment because I'm staying on topic today. I'm trying to stay on topic today. And those of you with access to mental health care, I'm not saying go to therapy and then suddenly every conversation is about what your therapist said, because sometimes that's weird. But you can behave yourself and conduct yourself in a way that you resolve issues in the most sound manner. I just came back on to Facebook this week. Again, call, pull, all the things. And y'all still out here fighting each other over political beliefs? Aren't we supposed to be evolving past that? Because I can tell you there's some people who do not believe at all in the way that I do politically or spiritually, that I've seen help their neighbors, love on one another, are always loving and welcome towards me, and they don't believe a damn thing that I believe in. Social constructs have us talking in a way that we don't actually believe or feel or act out of sometimes. And the only way you can discern that is to get to know a person before you decide that you want to judge them because of the way they vote or who they believe in. Sometimes they're a piece of crap person. I'm not going to say that's not the case, but sometimes they aren't. Sometimes it's just living out their social construct that they were raised to believe. I had a friend a while back. When I first met her, she was very young. I think about 19. And I was in my late 20s, I believe. And she was Republican all the way. For no other reason than her mama and daddy were Republican, and then people before them were Republican, and people before them, same thing with her husband. I didn't decide that she was a worthy person to even know or love based on that. I understood the negative ramifications for myself, being a woman of color, based on those beliefs and those ideals at the time. But I didn't toss her aside like as if she wasn't worthy of my time, company, or love based on that. We got to see beyond the fault and look at the need and circumstances like this sometimes. Doesn't mean that you lay over, just let somebody walk on you, because I ain't about that life. However, I can sometimes look beyond the fault and see the need. And over time, as I talked to her and as she understood social inequities through my eyes, it wasn't fake kindness. Even the most ignorant among us, or the most immature among us, understand true kindness and love. It was through seeing things from someone who showed her kindness in a moment that she needed it the most, maybe. But I know it's more conversations and my patience with her, and by proxy, her husband. Eventually, they just came somewhere towards the middle, and that's good enough for me. I wasn't trying to sway nobody. Just like, there's just specific things that you don't understand. She knew nothing about redlining. Oh, about the fact that if her and I go to the hospital with the same ailment, she's more likely to get pain meds, and I'm more likely to be looked at as a drug seeker. And it's happened enough times in real terms, in real life terms between the two of us. That's just like, I cannot believe they just did that to you. I was like, that's typical. I can be in extreme amount of pain, and I just got to suck it up, because they assume because we're not acting an ass or making a big stink that we're not in pain, even if we report that we are. And that's something that was believed, and it was something that was medical doctrine for a very, very long time. And a lot of physicians still adhere to that. That's why we need more people of color in medicine. There's one point I had a sinus infection so damn bad that I couldn't stand up straight. The infection had gone down to my gums and my teeth and into my ear. And they left me in a room for hours without any assistance, and then got upset with me when I started to scream in pain because I couldn't take it no more. And they gave me Tylenol, even though my chart told them I couldn't have it. Well, that's the best we can do for you. I was in the emergency room. 2 weeks later, she had a sinus infection. She went in there. They gave her hydrocodone and IV bag. I was at home with Motrin that day. And she saw in real time the differences and the inequities. And there was no reason for it. We both had the same exact insurance with the same exact coverage. Things like that. Experiencing things like that. And I wish I didn't have to experience it. But if it taught her something, it taught her something. And just conversations. That's why we can evolve past assuming based on someone's political beliefs that they're a terrible person or stupid. That's the thing some of y'all like to do. Calling each other ignorant, stupid, and all kinds of, and gullible, and all these things, when everybody's just trying to function in a world that don't make sense sometimes. We ain't got to do all that. If you're so intelligent, then you'd be emotionally intelligent and know that enough to know that some of these things are social constructs built in from generations of information passed down through families that trust each other. And if you never experienced anything outside of your bubble, you're likely to think the same way as everybody in your bubble. And considering, in all things considered, especially nowadays, a lot of people can't leave their bubble for fiduciary reasons. Just like getting mad at a cat for scratching you. That's how they function. But you take your time, like when people find wounded animals. Oof, cicadas going crazy. When people find wounded animals and they're trying to help them, and the animals trying to snap at them and scratch at them and bite at them, they don't just go in there and just rough them up and get angry with the animal. They realize the animal's afraid. So they take their time, giving them treats, petting them from a distance, taking the time to get closer and closer just until that animal trusts them. And then they're able to better help them. Anybody intelligent, at least who claims to have a higher emotional intelligence than someone else, she even consider that concept to be foundation number one when dealing with someone you disagree with. And guess what? On top of all that, sometimes you're wrong. I know, what a non-concept. Sometimes it's not all or nothing. Some Republican ideas make sense, and some Democratic ideas make sense. Some independent ideas make sense. And we can take the stuff. Hold on one second. We can take the stuff that makes sense and put it all in one pot and decide we're going to operate out of that. You know what makes the most sense? To not have D, R, I, G, any of those things in front of the name of a politician. Because they're all coming from the same swamp waters. Make their ideas more paramount than the team they're on. Come on now. This is a pastor a long time ago. She said, amen lights, amen walls to wake everybody up. Amen walls. As if you took the D and the R from in front of the most prominent political parties' names and just look at what they bring to the table and who they are as a person. we'd actually be forced to actually look at them as individuals and see if they're prepared and ready to lead in a way that is uh, helpful to all. Again, everybody ain't gonna always get what they want. They're gonna get what they need typically. But just by having those teams alone, it's disruptive to the process in my assessment. But maybe we can do it with our imagination. We can take the D, the R, the G, and the I away from these party names and decide, let me look at this whole human being and compare this whole human being to the other human being, regardless of what they affiliate themselves with. It just makes more sense to do it that way. That's just me, maybe. I say long term, it would benefit us to look at things that way. Because sometimes we're so caught up in whose team that somebody's on that we forget that there are some issues, that serious issues that need to be addressed. Sometimes we care more about the end result than we care about winning. I know that's a hard concept to understand, but we all win if we do things that way sometimes. That's enough of you that are able, that I know, that are able to be more involved. And I know it's hard to ask people who've been through so much to do more. Look, if you said that to me, I'd say you're preaching to the choir. But for now, if only thing you can do is look beyond somebody's fault, see their need, try that aspect of things, and not treat a person that you encounter that have differing opinions than you as if that's all that they are. On the liberal side of things, like we want our free choices and all these things. Yeah, well, what about the choices of other people to have hold those opinions about what they don't want for their body or their mind or their society? You're not going to always agree. But you become the same thing that you behave and think and perceive your enemy to be when you try to make it about that. How you treat someone, you make it about that. I can tell you every which way that was conceived of legally through the court system was thrown at one particular person. But the truth at the end is that we're going to have to choose. Can't bias the choice in any way, even when it was fair legally. The noise needs to be cut out. But I think it's crucial to our society right now for us to choose, not based on some legal understanding necessarily, although those legal things need to come out into the forefront. It's fair for us to choose and have no one guessing whether or not it was fair. But there's always going to be some people with some bull crap. And again, at the end of the day, that don't matter who's in there. What matters is what we do with the opportunity we have of who's in there. We show them what is popular. We show them what we want. They don't tell us. They've been telling us for a long time. We got to figure out that. The loving energy that we can create just by advocating for our community to have better access to mental health care and get insurance companies out of at least that part. And combining vision, dental, and body. Because somebody make it make sense why they're separate. It don't. Because the only way you would do something like that is if you are just literally trying to cause difficulty and challenges for people who are already experiencing difficulties and challenges. Eye care and dental care should not be for middle class and up. Because that's who's mainly getting that. And children and mothers and things like this on welfare. And it's like the average person who works a regular wage job, normal minimum wage or a little bit better, have difficulty accessing even those minimal things. It's like you're going to work your hearts to death. It don't make no sense. Leaders need to understand that, no, we can't make everybody wealthy. There's always going to be caste in this society. In every society around the world, there's always going to be caste. Human beings, they don't share really well. They don't share well. Some of them do, but the majority does not. Oh, butterfly. Doesn't mean that we can't advocate for fairness. We can't demand fairness. Not just advocate, demand fairness. You know what I wish? I wish that the same people who are so fervent, don't take my guns, would also be as enthusiastic about getting children, at the very least, more access to mental health care that is competent. At this point, therapists should be federal workers getting paid by the government. And I said paid by the government, not influenced by the government. Do you understand? There's two different things. It is so needed. There should be therapists in every role, in every building. And when I say every role, I mean every economic system, educational system, every office should have not just an HR person to discipline you when you act up. Should have therapists in every building. And I said therapists plural. I know schools have school counselors, they have one for an entire school typically, maybe two. What if 50 kids need access to a therapist that day? And maybe it's something small or minor. I'd say every school for every 100 children, there should be 2 therapists. That makes it fair. That means the therapist is not overwhelmed. Everybody gets seen and assessed, because eventually, if it's needed, a school therapist, a school counselor would refer you to a different counselor to see on a regular basis. And they just touch base with you once a month to make sure everything's going okay. And that you're joined well with the therapist they referred you to. But it's hard to get to everybody to even assess them when you have 50 caseloads sitting on your desk. Until we can get back to a place of normalcy. And when I say normalcy, that means that our children can go to school without worrying about whether or not somebody can come shoot to join up. Because it's not just about the shooters, it's also about the bullies in it. Or the lack of mental wellness and emotional wellness at home. When I was working in clinical practice, one of the things that I required was, if I'm going to see your kids, you need to agree to be seen at least once a month so I can assess what's going on with you and refer you out as needed. Because it don't make no sense if I'm going to help this kid and they're going to go home back to the mess that you probably created in the first place, whether you're aware of it or not. My goal is to help you become self-aware and to possibly get you access to someone, and then have family sessions on a regular basis to check in. The system. Come from a systems perspective. Because it makes no sense to give children more access to health care when at home mom and dad ain't okay. It don't make any sense. That's why I say therapists need to be everywhere. And when I say therapists, I'm saying we understand something from an ethical perspective, because there's still some of this in here. Your religious beliefs don't belong in the clinical room. Your religious beliefs do not belong in a mental health helping position. You're allowed to have those, but you're not allowed to push those. That's something that we're still struggling to completely squash. It's one of the biggest reasons, not because I don't think people deserve to have the beauty and splendor of belief and faith in something bigger than them. Because sometimes it makes some of y'all behave yourselves, thinking there's somebody watching. Somebody is watching all the time. But, that's just my subjective opinion, that we are all God watching each other. Who you think eyes are watching all the time. The eyes of us to each other. We are beholden to each other. But until we can get to the concept of that, until more of us can get to the concept of that, at least have something that you understand is bigger than you, that knows all and loves all. Because that's how you keep some people from doing the mess that some people do. And sometimes it's just beautiful to sit in observance of something that makes you vulnerable in a strong way. Like, I am going to be strong in this moment enough to surrender myself to something that could potentially benefit me. I think all of that is beautiful. But how we do that is a very individualized thing and couldn't be forced on our children. Like, I'm going to say it again. You take them religion out of school because not all children are going to believe what you believe. They're just not. And nor should they. We have variation for a reason. We're all learning from each other. One thing I will say, I still to this day think it's magnificent, and I don't know how or why or whence it came, but I still think it's a magnificent thing to have done when I was in grade school, to not stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I wasn't anti-country. I was anti-forcing someone to do that. I'm anti-forcing someone to pray the way you pray and worship the way you worship and give deference the way you give deference. I'm anti that. Always have been. Because how do you get a person to grow? You want well-developed minds, and you got to depend on who you speak to in power, whether they want well-developed minds. Well-developed minds will still work. Will still earn a living. They just have less codependency issues. I say what I said. And it's just really unkind to put the 10 Commandments in classroom. It's unkind to put the 10 Commandments in classroom. I say it's unkind. Because what about the Hindu children? What about the Muslim faith? What about the Jewish children? Do they not matter? It's just the construct of doing that further divides us. And then it starts the battle between faiths, religion, and what people look like from childhood. And aren't we supposed to be trying to get away from all that? The onus is on us to encourage our children to be accepting of one another. Because again, this country is becoming more and more diverse. When I tell you, the way I've been looking at some of these folks out here talking about immigrants eating their pets. Like in India, cows are pets. Cows are revered. So, I mean, we eat that all the time, every day. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying, what? We legitimately have a statistic that says our children have more likely chance to be traumatized, injured, or die from violence than any other circumstance in their life. And we concerned about whether immigrants are eating ducks in the park or cats or whatever. Look, I'm talking to the grown-ups right now. That's funny. But can we not do that and focus on things that matter? I know I be squirreling out here whenever I see a beautiful bird or a butterfly, but that's a big old squirrel. And when I say squirrel, that means you got distracted. See that movie Up? The dog, squirrel. You didn't tell me that statistic came out and we concerned about whether or not somebody's eating cats and dogs? During Vietnam War, there was no other choice other than to eat that for some of those folks. We do what we can to survive. And that's just silliness, if we're being honest with ourselves, considering the problems. Now, the memes have been hilarious. Those of you who are meme nerds, thank you for those. I know some people are not with the memes no more. Y'all like the little video clips, but I like to have my attention span intact. So I'm not doing the clips. This is one of the reasons why I just like, all right, came to TikTok, did what I needed to do, and I left. There were other reasons. I got to keep my head about me. And it ain't for me. But I would say this. I'm not saying we don't still need to laugh at each other, make jokes about a lot of this stuff. But can we walk and chew gum? We can, I think. As a matter of fact, I know we can. Look at all we survived in the last 5 years. We can do all right if we try even a little bit. I intend to keep trying. And I hope you join me. And when I say join me, I ain't talking about following me or nothing like that. When I say join me, I mean being active in your own community with your own Congress people and your local level and up. Being more engaged with children, giving them safe spaces, even if you're the safe space. I don't need you doing nothing for me. Y'all have a wonderful and lovely day. And I hope that I won't have to talk about this forever. I hope this is something so solvable within the next year or so that we get to a space where this is a relic of the past, this conversation. I have a feeling though, Pluto got something baked in the oven for my butt on this account. And I'm gonna have to work really hard if I want to see it done. I'd like to think that the collective can come together and agree on this thing. Even if we agree on nothing else, we all want our children to be safe. We don't want to see no more news stories with statistics like that. And this is a process we're all going through, but it's one of the more challenging ones I've gone through in quite some time. Like, I can get angry. I really can. But I've worked on my anger so damn much that at this particular point, I choose my words wisely. And I choose what I get angry about because it's exhausting. But I know if I do get angry, I can make it move. This is my preferred stance, though. Let's all work together to get it done. And I hope that's doable, and I hope that's possible. And at this point, I'm choosing to have faith in it and faith in you. Anyway, your love.